Want a job where their entire reason for existence is to make sure you don't bleed out? Well, the White Mage has you covered. The White Mage focuses solely on keeping themselves and their teammates alive, as their kit sports only regenerative and preventative abilities, with no offensive spells in sight. The White Mage sports a decent weapon proficiency spread, mainly wanting to use either a staff and shield for a balance of healing and defense, while also occasionally swapping to holding 2 staves for higher healing output and potentially some extra damage. The White Mage's base stat spread is also what you would think a healer would have. Decent health, speed, and magic, but a little on the frail side without a ton of weight to play around with. Moving on to the White Mage's specialties, first we have Angelic Ward. Any incoming damage targeting the White Mage has about a 30% chance of being halved. This is primarily to help keep the White Mage alive against hard-hitting bosses or rough encounters where enemies make killing the healer their main priority. Since Angelic Ward is based on luck, any luck-increasing abilities like Lucky Charm or Lunar Powered will increase the chances of Angelic Ward activating, with the Phantom's Results Guaranteed specialty raising that activation rate to 100% at the cost of 40 MP each hit. Angelic Ward has no real downsides other than it being somewhat random, as a potential chance to survive a killing blow will never not be wanted. The White Mage's second specialty is Holistic Medicine. This specialty lets a variety of healing actions become group castable without the need for across-the-board passives. The actions that benefit from this are Basana, Esuna, Raise, Arise, Heal, Healara, Healaga, Regeneration, and Raise. All of these actions are cast without the group cast potency drop, with the exception of Raise. This specialty definitely aids the White Mage in their mission to keep their teammates alive with ease, since they can effectively remove one of the big trade-offs of some of these spells with just their specialty alone. And lastly, the White Mage's special move is Sacred Light. This ability will restore a massive amount of HP to the entire team, while also curing all status ailments for the entire party. The bonus effect of Sacred Light is a 15% boost to the party's physical and magical defense. More healing piled on top of more healing, though the added defense boosts are pretty nice. Easy special move to spam due to its requirements being to cast White Magic 12 times, so there shouldn't be any reason to not keep your finger on the trigger when this move pops up. Moving on to the White Mage's combat abilities, first up is, you guessed it, more healing. Since the job is magic oriented, the White Mage has some magic that will periodically get upgrades throughout their leveling journey. So, starting off our list is Cure, Cura, and Curaga, learned at job level 1, 6, and 12. This is the job's bread and butter healing skills, capable of healing a single target or multiple at once, though with a lower potency. These spells really need no introduction. If you or a party member need a little patch up, sling these spells their way. Simple enough. I guess you should probably keep the MP cost of the higher tier magic in mind, and wager whether or not the wounds of your party require more healing or not. Although one nifty thing these spells, along with all restorative magics, can do is hurt enemies of the undead family. This can turn the White Mage into a fierce killing machine in certain scenarios, as they have a high restorative power, so smiting the undead with cure spells is something they are quite adept at doing. Second up is Protect and Shell, obtained at job level 3 and 4. These spells act in a very similar way to each other, raising the defense of a target by 15% with each cast made. Protect will increase physical defense, while Shell will increase magical defense. This can aid in ensuring that the White Mage or any other frail party member on the field can take a hit, or to make the already bulky tank even bulkier. The across-the-board passive can also allow for these spells to affect the entire team in one cast. Next up is another bundle of spells, Raise, Arise, and Raise All, unlocked at level 4, 10, and 15. Raise will revive a fallen party member with roughly 30% of their max HP restored, letting them get back into the fray even if they might just instantly go down again. This spell is basically a better Phoenix Down that just costs a pretty decently low amount of MP. Now, Arise and Raise All are slightly different, with both of these spells reviving their targets with all of their HP restored to them. The major trade-off being that Arise and Raise All cost a much larger chunk of MP compared to Raise. Also, Arise normally only targets one party member, but with the Holistic Medicine specialty, Arise not only can target all of your allies, but is also cheaper than Raise All. Lastly, similar to Cure, these revival spells can be used on undead enemies to hurt them, as they will have a chance to trigger instant death on them when cast. Now onto the ability the White Mage learns at job level 7, Benediction. This increases the user's restorative power by 30% for 3 turns at the cost of a little bit of HP. The White Mage's healing prowess is already out of this world, but Benediction can push it over the edge if you aren't somehow satisfied with your healing output, or just need to do a big panic heal push for your team to get back into the fight. In my opinion though, Benediction does more for jobs that are using the White Mage as a sub-job, since this can help them match that sheer healing output of the White Mage for a pretty small price. Last up for the combat abilities is Basuna and Esuna, learned at job level 8 and 13. Basuna will cleanse the target of a variety of ailments, including poison, silence, sleep, paralysis, blindness, contagion, daubing, and freezing. While this isn't every ailment that can be applied in the game, it is a considerable chunk of them, which makes Basuna quite handy to have when navigating dungeons or fighting enemies that are known to have any of these pesky ailments. Esuna, on the other hand, is an upgraded version of Basuna, curing the same ailments plus Dread, Berserk, Confusion, Charm, Slow, Stop, Doom, and even some potential elemental resistance reductions. Both of these spells are quite valuable in very similar situations. And don't forget they can be group cast as a White Mage thanks to Holistic Medicine. Now, first on the White Mage's passive abilities that learned at job level 5 is Solar Power. This ability is quite similar to the Black Mage's Lunar Power, as this passive can only be activated at a specific time of day. Solar Powered will raise its user's restorative power, aim, and luck by roughly 10%. With the added bonus of restoring their MP by 4% every turn. Similar to Lunar Powered, there really isn't a scenario where this passive isn't useful in some way, as long as you keep the time of day in mind when exploring the world or fighting enemies. The White Mage especially can benefit from Solar Powered thanks to the Luck boost, as that helps Angelic Ward proc more frequently. Next, at job level 9, the White Mage obtains Drain Attack. With each conventional attack landed by the user, this passive will restore 20% of the damage dealt as HP. Excellent means of self-sustain for jobs that can actually deal some decent damage from their normal attacks, though avoid using this when battling undead enemies, as the HP benefits will be reversed when fighting them. Last up for the White Mage's passives are Better Than Ever and Above and Beyond, learned at job level 11 and 14. These two passives have nearly identical effects, being that they will allow party members to be healed beyond their max HP, sort of acting as a temporary overheal. Note that this overheal cannot go past 9,999 HP without the Monk's Maximize HP passive, so jobs that already have a high HP space stat may not see much benefit from these passives. Also, the only major difference between these two passives are that Better Than Ever costs 1 support point to use and only affects the user of the passive, while Above and Beyond costs 2 points and will affect any party member. The White Mage's game plan is short and simple: keep the team alive and healthy. Now, they don't really need too much help with this, honestly, as their entire kit already provides more than enough to accomplish this. So the White Mage needs to look at what they lack when looking for a sub-job. The first job that comes to mind as a decent pick for the White Mage is the Red Mage, with their Chain Spell specialty and added magic damage abilities giving the White Mage more options and agency in combat. While still quite straightforward, this pair can at least let the White Mage contribute to battles when their healing isn't needed, plus Holistic Medicine granting the group cast bonus to the Red Mage's heal spells. The Oracle leans more into the team buffer, with their elemental manipulation and speed buffs. The Oracle also provides a means of dealing damage thanks to their triple magic. This isn't a bad pair to run for reflect strategies, though do try not to heal the enemy on accident. Next are the Pictomancer and Bard, and they sort of are interchangeable, with the Picto focusing on debuffs and Bard focusing on team buffs. The major split is in whether or not you want the Pictomancer's Daub and elemental coverage, or the Bard's wider array of buffs, non-elemental damage, and turn manipulation. Neither of these choices are bad, along with many others, So pick out what you find interesting or need in certain situations and just go crazy. What more can be said about the White Mage that hasn't been beaten to death already in this video alone? This job is good at providing aid to the party through heals, buffs, and ailment cleansing. And it is the epitome of what a pure support job role is in this game, at the cost of not having much else to do when their services aren't needed. The White Mage also does struggle early on in the gear department, as their weight stat is quite poor, limiting what they can wear until your party's actual levels begin to rise higher. Overall, the White Mage does what it needs to do well, and if you're willing to commit to it, this job's support capabilities can reach even greater heights with certain sub-jobs and passives, even if it can be a little too straightforward or even boring for some. Lastly is the fashion tier list. Starting with Seth, I just want to say that I really like the overall theme with the White Mage garb this time around, with a fully covered winter coat aesthetic being the consistent with each party member. Now, since I am an enjoyer of stylish hats, and I'm willing to admit that, Seth gets a lot of bonus points from me for his slick white cap. Though, I would be lying if I said I didn't think the rest of his look is sort of bland. The White Mage coat is really nice, and I'm a proponent of simple is usually better, but my guy has pretty much nothing else going for him other than the gold ornament on his chest. It's a pretty okay design that Seth himself elevates to a solid B tier spot. Next is Gloria, and goodness that hat is adorable. But rather than spending the next 20 minutes on why Gloria in that hat might be the key to world peace, let's go ahead and look at the rest of the outfit, shall we? She is bundled up for the cold weather, similar to Seth, but she also has a long white cape and puffier sleeves around her cuff area, along with some white gloves instead of black ones, which kind of makes her leggings pop out more. It's really the only piece of black she has in the entire outfit. This is a design that I'm sure most players also have seen, since Gloria is the party member that this job usually is given to, giving it a sort of iconic status for some players. The hat and overall clean design of her coat and cape is enough for me to award Gloria a high A tier spot this time around. The next is Elvis, and while I don't like to diss on my boy too much, I just don't think this design fits him very well. Don't get me wrong, I think the pure white cape and gold trim seen on his cuffs and chest are a nice touch, but he doesn't wear the hat very well, and I don't know, it's tough to explain, but he seems a little too lanky in this entire, like he doesn't fit in it very well. Still, more uniqueness than Seth's design, but overall not as good of a fit. C tier. Last up is Adele, who takes the most inspiration from the original Asterisk holder this time around. She has shorter sleeves and a hat similar to Elvis, while having a matching coat and leggings with Gloria. Adele wears the hat way better than Elvis does, but I don't think she pulls off the wintry vibe that the others have as well as she could. But then again, Adele is known to not mind the cold as much as the other party members, so I guess it does fit her pretty well. Pretty decent A tier spot if I do say so myself.